Welcome everybody to the ListEngage podcast. My name is Altaf Shaikh. I'm the founder and CEO of ListEngage, and I had the absolute honor and pleasure of sitting down with Guilda Hilaire on this podcast. Guilda is a veteran of the digital industry. She spent 15 plus years of her career working for phenomenal brands and helping them with their digital transformation journey. Today, Guilda took the time to talk about what she has done at these companies, how she's helped them get transformed from in the digital marketing spectrum. He also spoke about her passion to help trailblazers do better and learn in the ecosystem and give back to the companies that they work for. She also spent a few minutes talking about how ListEngage and Guilda have worked together to make a difference at these organizations. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the ListEngage podcast. We call it the Engagers podcast. It's my distinct pleasure today to invite Guilda Hilaire. I'm the founder and CEO of ListEngage. I've known Guilda for a long time. Guilda is currently the senior manager of product marketing at Salesforce. But Guilda, in my opinion, has a storied career. I call her a veteran of digital marketing. She's actually spearheaded the use of Salesforce and adoption of Salesforce at leading brands that are recognizable, right? CVS, Aetna, Digitas, Athena Health, Liberty Mutual. Guilda and I go way back, and Guilda has been instrumental in helping these companies adopt Salesforce Marketing Cloud, the use of Salesforce, and has been a true evangelist in helping companies move through the digital marketing spectrum, if you will. So my distinct pleasure to invite Guilda today. I also think of Guilda as something special than just this role that she does at these companies, right? Guilda has been a true and a passionate leader when it comes to connecting consumers and customers within the ecosystem. It is a large ecosystem. There's a lot of fragmented information and at times confusion, and customers and consumers need to be handheld, if you will, along the way. Put them in the right touch with the right people at Salesforce with consumers and connect customers. And Guilda does a phenomenal job. She's passionate about things like that and has been able to, I have seen her do podcasts, LinkedIn posts, promote certifications of people. And that's just why I was so interested in inviting Guilda to our podcast today, ask her a few questions, try and get to the bottom of where she finds the energy to keep going in the ecosystem at the pace she does. So Guilda, welcome to the ListEngage podcast. I'm going to give it to you to add a little bit more to the background. And then I have a few questions that hopefully people listening in can learn from your background, Guilda.
Well, Altaf, first and foremost, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here and to take part in this awesome show. What can I say? I think you described my role perfectly well. I've always been a big advocate on knowledge sharing and education, right? And for the past 15 plus years since using the Salesforce products, one of the things that I've always wanted to do, I want to make sure whatever knowledge I have, I pass that on to somebody else. So whether it's in writing thought leadership pieces on LinkedIn, to doing videos, and to starting off the first user group in Boston, right, for back then, Exact Target, those to me were all opportunities for me to ensure that the community of up and coming users had the information that they needed to be successful in using the Salesforce platform.
Great, very good. Excellent, Guilda. I mean, it clearly shows in the work you've done and continue to do each and every day, right? I think you are out there, you are a great voice for consumers and customers, and it's obvious in some of the messages you share and how you promote resources that get certified and so on and so forth. So very excited, Guilda. So Guilda, all of these companies, J&J, Liberty Mutual, Boston Consulting Group, Athena Health, great brands, Aetna, you've helped them through the digital evolution process. Tell us a little bit about your role at these companies. What were you called to do there? Talk to us a little bit about the common role. I'm sure it's evolved over time, but what was the common role at these companies? What were you charged to do?
It's a great question. The other day I was in my Yahoo account, which has over 300,000 emails because I haven't deleted a single email in so many years. And I found a folder and the folder said Johnson and Johnson. So I actually started my career using Salesforce and really knowing about the platform 15 years ago at Johnson and Johnson, building emails for them for the Olympic campaigns and also on educational programs that we would lead for a lot of surgeons and for consumers. And I found an email and it had like blinking lights in it and it had like flying gifts. And I said, my goodness, how I have evolved over time because I started my career in building emails, right? And I would, build the emails and then hit the send. And I realized how my career has transformed from building emails, right? In my last role at Aetna, it was really the governance of the platform, right? It was really making sure that, whoever was using the platform, they were trained, they were educated. It was, leading some of the implementations and overseeing the scope of the work and the project and making sure that our data was secured and understanding all the data schemas, right? So it's really understanding the nuts and bolts of the platform compared to 15 years ago. I was an email marketer. I was building emails. I was managing deliverability and understanding, design work and what would make the receiver want to open the email. And that's really the roles that I've had is, being an email marketer and then wearing the developer hat. So I would be, I'm what you would call like the unicorn, right? Because I've had many, many roles, but the last one was really the one that really triggered something for me because I love governance. I love overseeing the platform and I love being seen as the SME, the subject matter
Right.
expert. And I feel like that was the pivotal point for me in my career was the role I had at Aetna and CVS because I
That's
felt
great.
like I was finally bringing everything together.
Great, very good. So from being a email developer, a user,
Mhm.
to what I would lovingly call a policy wonk or a policy czar,
Yes.
governance czar, right? I mean, making sure
Mhm.
that everybody uses the platform the correct way, maximizes the
Mhm.
licenses that you purchase, not only for because that's sort of what we need to do when we buy good pieces of software, but ROI, the opportunity
Absolutely.
cost is critical and important for companies to get when you adopt software like this. And I think Salesforce is a leader in that area. And I think having people like you at these companies makes a true difference.
Absolutely. You
Yeah,
want
that's
to
very interesting.
maximize, utilization and you need almost like a center of excellence, right? Lead to take that charge and take that lead. And that's the role I had.
Great, very good, excellent. So I think, Hilda, I'm looking at my questions here. There's the other interesting one, right? What principles across the board? If there's one characteristic or challenge that makes these companies unique, you go in there and you see that same underlying principle problem. What is it when you go into these companies that is a challenge that you want to overcome for them, which kind of pushes the needle quite a bit to the right? I mean, these evolution, these journeys are multi-year at these companies. But
Mhm.
what is the unique challenge that you see at all these customers, if there is one?
Data.
Yeah,
Data to me in my entire career has always been the hurdle for a lot of these companies to understand. And, it's a good problem to have. I think it's really understanding what do I do with this data to make sure that I'm sending the right email, the right message, right? Whether the message is email, whether it's web, whether it's social, whether it's text, right? The right message at the right time. It all boils down to data, understanding the amount of data you have, understanding the characteristics of each data and each email campaign. The metrics behind those campaigns goes right back to data, right? Because then you get
right.
the analytics behind those campaigns. You now have to take those analytics and tie that back to data that you already existed. So I think what I've seen throughout my career is data has always been the most critical component to any journey, to any migration, email design, it all boils down to data. So
Got
understanding
it.
your data is always a challenge, but honestly speaking, if you put the right strategy behind it and the right team, you'll be very successful.
Got it. Very good. So get a handle on your data. Get a handle on your data, right? I mean, I often I read it somewhere. It stuck with me over the years. Somebody said, "In God we trust. Everybody else bring data." Right? I mean, it's all about
Right.
having the right amount of data to engage your consumers. Then to measure it is another data challenge, and then to kind of incorporate the learnings from that measurement and data is sort of it's a complete closed loop cycle. But it
Mhm.
starts and ends with data. I know we've all said content is king, deliverability is king, but that to me may be important, but everything starts with data and ends with data. And that's, I mean, I
Right.
completely, that was the answer I was expecting from you. And
Right.
I'm glad you pinned it.
You
Absolutely.
know, I say content is king, data is queen, and we know the queen's rule, right?
You are right. You are right. Okay, that's checkmate right there. Okay, great, very good. So, Gilda, moving on to the stuff that you've done for companies, what advice would you give a customer who is embarking on or is already in the midst of a digital transformation journey? A customer, a company, VP of marketing or the product marketing manager adopting Salesforce in the middle of a customer digital transformation journey. What advice do you have for them, Gilda?
And actually, Altaf, I'm going to say thank you to your team. Years ago, when you and I first started working, and I don't even remember what year, but we started working at Liberty Mutual. And I remember when we first met, one of you guys came and you said, you know what you're missing is you're missing documentation on your current state. And from that documentation, it was really blueprinting, it was really strategy. And I just want to say for anybody that is embarking on this journey, it's really, really important to sit down with your team as a whole. And that's exactly what we did years ago when we first started working, is sitting together and understanding current state, right? Current state of your campaigns, current state of your data, right? How's everything working together? Current state of your team. So we sat down and we built the blueprint of that and we identified the gaps. So I want to say for anybody embarking on this, it's really sitting down involving all of, the cross collaborative teams that would come together, right, for this end result, and sitting down and building a strategy, building out the data schema, building out the framework, and blueprinting everything, which is what you had shared with me years ago. And I've carried that through in every single organization that I've worked at.
That's fantastic, Gilda. I clearly remember those days at Liberty Mutual. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we have worked together. That's why I say you're a customer and a friend in the ecosystem. Every company you've been to, we've worked with you because of our good work, our relationship, and the expertise. But I think every organization you've gone to, we've kind of worked with you. I clearly remember those days at Liberty Mutual 10, 15 years ago, maybe, Gilda. And I think you're absolutely right. Well said, right? I think customers and companies cannot get to a future state. What you said to me is so critical. Can't get to a future state without understanding the current state of the union, right? You have to map out your current state, your current process, your current deficiencies, and where you're good at, and then look at the roadmap. And you need experts who've used the platform, who understand data, folks like you, folks like us. I mean, I think I often say a good platform plus
Yeah,
great services is equal to a total solution. You can't
absolutely.
just take a good platform and run with it. Great service, but not a good platform ain't going to cut it. So good platform plus great service is a total solution. And that's where I think, Gilda, you make a difference in helping companies, I think, understanding their current state, making them see what future state looks like, and then working with them over the years with policy, guidance, thought leadership to fill
Mm-hmm.
that gap. And I think
Yeah.
that's so important,
Yeah, and I've seen companies skip that step because they want to rush,
right?
right? Where if it's 12 months for migration, they figure we don't need to blueprint. We're going to skip that step. It'll shave off, 3 months. Well, actually, it actually added now 6 months
Right.
because you didn't blueprint properly and you missed a couple of key components, right? So that documentation and that blueprinting, whether it takes 2 or 3 days sitting in a room, is business critical.
Absolutely. Completely agreed, Gilda. I think if you don't do that, good thinking, good design, good
Mm-hmm.
architecture, document it, get customer approvals, then you're on quicksand. You're building something on quicksand and you're going to take 2 steps forward and 4 backwards. Rightly said, you're going to lose more time than trying to shave off some time, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think we're on the same page there. Completely agree with you. So Gilda, you've been a veteran in this industry, 15
Mm-hmm.
plus years. You could have worked for any organization, so many other ESPs out there, probably wanting your talent and expertise. Why do you love Salesforce so much? Why did you kind of move from recommending it and working in it and helping companies adopt it to literally
Mm-hmm.
moving to the mothership, as I call it? You now are a part of Salesforce. You went and joined them. Love to hear your story and what was your thought process in making that transition or that move, Gilda?
Mhm. For me, it was really what the organization, I'd say at the time stood for, but what it stands for, right? Salesforce really stands and is behind the customers. They stand and they're behind digital transformation, right? If you look at all of the products that they're coming out with or all the changes they've made, right, within the ecosystem, it's beyond bounds of what you would think would have happened a couple years ago. And I've always stood by the brand and loved the brand. And it was a win-win for me when I decided, I'm going to go work for Salesforce, right? Because I love the brand, I love the people, I love the Trailblazers, and I wanted to feel like I was supporting and uplifting the Trailblazers and the work that they were doing. And I almost felt like it was a conflict of interest working for the brands, but also trying to support the Trailblazers, to be that thought leader. And when the opportunity came, I said, you know what? I didn't see it as it was a no brainer for me. It was like, well, why not? You've supported the brand for so many years. Why not be part of the brand that's really changing the landscape of the digital world?
That's great, Gilda. When I heard that you were joining Salesforce, I remember getting a text from you, getting an email from
Mm-hmm.
you. We were in the midst of so many things going on for our client where you were working at that time, Aetna. And I remember saying to myself, this is the thought that came to mind. And I'll say to you today, on this podcast, right? I think the reason you went there is because you said you could make a change one company, one customer at a time, but probably by being at Salesforce, you could make the change faster, quicker for many companies together. And I think while some of
Mm-hmm.
these companies may miss you, I think the work you're doing in the ecosystem across the board, across
Mm-hmm.
trailblazers, across companies, in spreading the thought leadership and advice is just making the ecosystem move further, Gilda. So I think you're making a difference far better than just being at one company. Maybe it's that one company's loss, but it's the ecosystem's gain, Gilda. That's my thought process, and I feel that. So we touched a little bit upon Gilda, and I don't want to make this just a listing gauge thing here, but we've partnered with you at every company you work for, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's our people, it's our culture. But what was that one thing? I mean, and again, right, with ListEngage, why did you choose to partner with ListEngage? And if you were to choose to partner with another partner, just general feedback, because I want the
Mm-hmm.
ecosystem to benefit like you. I don't want just this to be just a ListEngage show, if you will. What does a Gilda, a trailblazer, an evangelist, an expert look for in a partner? Why did you work with ListEngage, and what is your advice to other partners who may be listening as to what needs to be done to connect with you to help further the ecosystem, Gilda?
Our very first engagement, I remember as though it was yesterday. And I remember when I think it was you and Nolan, correct me if
Yes.
I'm wrong, that we met and you did this deep dive analysis of current state of how we were using the platform. And the reason I was drawn to the organization as a whole is honesty. I felt like you weren't trying to sugarcoat anything. You were very honest about what we needed to do to maximize utilization, things that we were missing in our current configuration, recommendation. I felt like the organization, they weren't beating around the bush. And the other thing that's very important for me with any vendor that I work with, I want you to be proactive, not reactive, right? And why that's important because, I don't want to work, I not want, but it rubs me away when I'm working with a vendor and I only see them when it's time to renew the contract, right? Or when you want more business.
Right.
What I found with ListEngage, and a big shout out to you, is with everybody that I've worked with, they've been proactive, not reactive. They're not reacting with something of me calling them and saying, oh my God, red flag, red flag. That it's always been one of those relationships where they stayed on top of the relationship, whether it's through email communication, whether it's meetings, whether it's check-ins, whether it's text messages, right? And that's what I've loved about ListEngage is, and with any vendor, is that proactiveness is key. And it goes back to that journey, that personalization, right? Where with any customer, you want to personalize the experience. You want that whatever it is that you're giving off is something that you would want to also receive from any vendor you work with. And for me, ListEngage has always gone above and beyond with that expectation, which is one of the reasons why I've always enjoyed working with you. And I also have to say, you guys think outside the box. You don't do what you're told. You think bigger picture, right? Future state, not current state. And I've worked with some vendors where it's current state. We're going to tell you what you need to do today, right? Not what you need to do 6 months to be successful. So for me, that's also business critical, right? Is I want to partner with somebody that's looking out for the organization's best interest 6 months or a year from today. And that the last thing I want to say is that you guys keep up with the trends, right? You guys know what the future state from a digital standpoint looks like. So you bring that with you to any organization. I don't ever recall going back to your team saying, hey, I read this online. It's like, oh no, you guys brought that to us. You would set up meetings, you would set up videos, webinars. You would always pull us in to make sure that we were always educated on some of the digital transformation things that were happening around us.
Right. No, I think that's fantastic. Good to hear that we have made a believer in a resource like you. You've done great work at these companies, and just to feel as founder and CEO of ListEngage over all these years building a company, I think it's the feedback from our customers that's important, and for us to work with you at every organization and make you feel that we were a part of something good that you were doing makes me feel so proud.
And I think my emails would start off with, Altaf, I know you're extremely busy, but I'm begging you, please.
No, absolutely. We love to work with you, Guilda. We love to get those emails. I know myself, Nolan, Carlos, Mike Newman came to you first day at Liberty Mutual. And then before you moved to Salesforce at Aetna, our good friend, our technical lead, Nick Holdren, was your right-hand man. I mean, Nick would get texts late at night, emails, because there were so many things going on. And it's just absolutely necessary, right? I think the way we look at it is it's hard to get customers, brand new customers. And this is not a one-time relationship. We're happy to help a company get onboarded, but a lot of good work happens post onboarding. We want to help you with your ongoing journeys, develop traction in the ecosystem on the platform. And we're looking at multi-year relationships if we need to be in that relationship to continue to help you. And that's sort of why those late evenings, panic emails, working on weekends, and building a great relationship with our customers is so important. And I think you saw a flavor of that, and you reciprocated that, Guilda, at every organization that you went. So we were thrilled. I mean, not a single day went by when we weren't talking Guilda and Salesforce in our organization, and Nick, Nolan, myself, Carlos, so many others, right? We constantly had to, we're constantly discussing those things. So that's amazing. Good to hear that, Guilda. And thank you for the kind words as well, Guilda. So Guilda, my one question before we go back to a final question and wrap it up. Tell me a little bit about the Trailblazer community at Salesforce. There's so many things going on, so many clouds, right? One can just as they say, one can get lost in a cloud. There are so many clouds at Salesforce and the connected ecosystem, sales, service, marketing cloud, Pardot. There's so many things going on. And the ecosystem is a vibrant one. And Salesforce is making people learn the platform through the sales cloud side. It requires a little bit more expertise on the marketing cloud side, but it requires education, it requires adoption, it requires getting those badges and trails. Talk to me a little bit about your passion to see individuals either start out after college, be early adopters in the digital space, and then build a career in digital marketing on the Salesforce platform, Gilda. I know you spend a lot of your time today engaging, nurturing, nourishing these trailblazers with what they need to know. I would love to hear a little bit about how you approach each day, why you congratulate those people, and what you do in your day-to-day activity, Gilda.
Well, and that's what it's about. Being a trailblazer in the community is being a pioneer, right? And that's one of the things I love about Salesforce is that trailblazer community. They love sharing their story. They, taking, like you said, the certifications and the all of the materials on Trailhead, right? The video vignettes. It helps them with their overall career trajectory. And it's about educating, sharing, and others, become experts, not only in Salesforce from a technology, but it's also soft skills, right? If you are brand new to the marketing space and you want to know everything there is to know about email marketing, go to Trailhead and you'll be able to find courses on that. And most importantly, you can take it on the go, right? Because there's Trailhead Go and etc. And it's free, right? And I know that there are a lot of people looking to change their career trajectory. So by doing so, they could go straight to Trailhead. But that's the thing I love about it, is especially during these times, is that there is an opportunity to continue to educate the community, right? Through the webinars that I host, through these thought leadership pieces, through our trailblazers themselves who are leading the way. And it just, to me, is an ecosystem that's going to continue to grow and grow and grow, because it's all about education and it's all about your career trajectory, your career growth, really putting you in the driver's seat. You now have full control over your next career path, and you could go to Trailhead and do so. You can go on LinkedIn or Twitter and find others that are, in similar paths and reach out to them. And this is one community that loves sharing, that will continue to raise their hand and say, I will help you. Let's set up some time. Let's co-lead a session together. Let's co-create content, right? Where else can you find that but within the Salesforce Trailblazer / ecosystem?
Great, very good. Excellent, Gilda. I mean, and lastly, I would say, I think of you as a true connector, as a Salesforce evangelist, and you continue to help the ecosystem flourish and grow along the way, Gilda. And I think the ecosystem is lucky to have you. And selfishly, I would say you're in the ecosystem doing what you are doing every day, incrementally. It's growing because of the service or the time you're spending in the ecosystem. But when you think of your career path, Gilda, what's next for you? Continue to do this and help the ecosystem. That's great, but what are your goals? Where are you headed? I'm sure other marketing managers are looking at this and saying, who look up to you, who follow you, are probably trying to, would benefit from this advice. So what's next for you, Gilda?
That's a good question. I love what I'm doing, and I guess I just want to continue doing more of it, right? I want to continue making an impact in the community. I want to continue uniting and bringing people together. There's a joke in the community. Everyone calls me the handler.
Exactly right. Yeah.
I pull and I bring people together, and, I just love what I do, and I want to continue doing more and launching great programs, working with partners like yourself. I know it's a long-winded answer. I really don't have a concrete plan, but right now my plan is just to continue with what I am doing and evolving that within the community.
That's great, Gilda. I mean, you call yourself gently a handler. I would say that when need be, you are a twister picker upper as well. You can twist some arms to make things happen, to get those sessions going in a timely fashion and so on and so forth. But that's sort of what's required. So this is fantastic, Gilda. One quick personal question, and then we'll wrap up the session. Let you go back to your busy day, Gilda. How has the pandemic affected you personally? I mean, we used to travel so often for Salesforce
Mhm.
meetings, and I know customers benefited from us being in the room, and Salesforce benefited from having us at these conferences and so on and so forth, right? It's a difficult time right now for so many. How has the pandemic personally affected you? I'd love to hear a little bit of how you're handling your time during the pandemic, and so just kind of share a little bit about that, Gilda.
Yeah. I think for me, I have a 17-year-old daughter, so it's been a bit challenging because I've seen her go through the emotions. And as a parent, it's tough because you hate when you see your child crying, or you hate when they feel like they're unable to do certain things. And especially for her, she's thinking about college next year, so
Right?
it's been it's been a huge hit for her mentally and
Hmm.
emotionally. And then as a parent, you feel that pain. So for me, it's really trying to aid her as she goes through a mental state and all these changes. And even for me at work, I miss my customers. I miss traveling. I miss that face-to-face time. And even some of my trailblazers, they've been hit really hard. And sometimes I feel useless, helpless, right? Because I don't know how to help them. And I've always been a helper, right? And I feel like right now, like I sometimes don't know what to do, or don't know how to help, even though I want to help. So you kind of feel stuck, right? So been the biggest, you know, that's been the biggest challenge for me is, how do I help the community? How do I help my 17-year-old? And then I have my parents, right? They're in their 70s. So I'm very
Yeah.
cautious about them, and, helping them as needed, and really wanting them to stay home, don't go out. And so it's just been a lot.
It has definitely, right? It's been a double, triple whammy for so many of us.
Little
The
whammy.
pandemic, yeah, the pandemic around us, people getting affected. I would say initially, many of us knew somebody's uncle or aunt who was getting hit, but now we all have first name
Mm-hmm.
basis connections with people who have been affected by COVID, and then all of the other things going on around us, the unrest and so on and so forth. It is a difficult time to deal with, but I think by spending time in our ecosystem, by doing the right thing for people in our jobs, that's probably the difference, the best difference we can make. And
Right.
we were doing our part. So this is fantastic, Gilda. I would say that this call is going to be the highlight of my week. We can't top this one. The time I've spent with you has been phenomenal, Gilda. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend with me on the ListEngage podcast. We call it the Engager podcast. We will share this on LinkedIn with you, with others, and hopefully we'll use some tidbits of knowledge here to educate the ecosystem even further. Before we wrap it up, Gilda, any final comments, any final thoughts from you, and then we can sign off?
Just one final thought is, my favorite quote is, never stop learning. Right? Never stop learning. And what I mean by that, and even some of the questions you've asked about being the digital leader and my roles at these other organizations, is not only have I learned on my own, but I've also learned with partnerships like yourself. So that's my one advice, is never stop learning, and always continue to build on your credentials. So visit Trailhead
Great. That's
for that.
fantastic.
And thanks again for having me. I had an amazing time.
Great, very good, Gilda. I mean, if you stop learning, you stop growing, right? That's
Right.
the mantra. Especially in our ecosystem, it's such a
Mm-hmm.
fast-moving, innovative ecosystem that if you don't keep up, you're dead word. If you stop learning, you stop growing. Great advice to end the podcast, Gilda. Thank you so much. It was my distinct pleasure.